Hello friends, today's lecture is based on life cycle of Psilotum. In this lecture, we will try to cover the classification of Psilotum, habitat of Psilotum, number of species in India, most common Indian species, then external appearance of the sporophytic plant body, then anatomy of the sporophytic plant body. Okay, and in next lecture, in part second lecture, we will try to cover the reproduction and alternation of generation. Okay, so Psilotum life cycle. Systematic position. It is belong to division Pteridophyta, subdivision Psilotopsida, order Psilotales, family Psilotaceae, and genus Psilotum. So this is the systematic position or classification of the Psilotum. Point number 1. The genus Psilotum consists of two species, Psilotum nudum and Psilotum flaccidum. So there are only two species of the Psilotum. Number 2. Psilotum nudum is fairly common in tropical and subtropical parts of both hemispheres. It can occur in both the tropics in hemispheres. Okay. Number 3. Psilotum flaccidum is pendulous epiphyte on the tree trunks. It can be grows as hanging position on as a epiphyte on the tree trunks. Is restricted to Jamaica, Hawaii, Florida, Mexico, and some Pacific islands. Okay. Now number 4. In India, the genus is represented by Psilotum nudum only. In India, Psilotum nudum species can be occurs. It has been collected from Shimla, Kulu, Panchamari, and Darjeeling hills. These are the most common occurrence or habitat of the Psilotum, and this nowadays this Psilotum also grows everywhere, and in public gardens also, in domestic plants also, these Psilotums can be seen very easily. Now the sporophyte external morphology. Sporophyte means what? Spore producing plant body. In case of pteridophytes, sporophytic plant body is the dominant plant body. Okay, it is a long-lived plant body. It is a nutritionally independent plant body. It is a green autotrophic plant body. So main plant body in the pteridophytes is the sporophytic. On the contrary, in bryophytes, the gametophytic plant body is the dominant plant body, but in pteridophytes, the sporophytic is dominant plant body. Okay, now here you see in the photograph the entire A diagram is nothing but the entire plant body of the Psilotum. Underground rhizomes are there, then aerial shoots are there. Okay, then shoots shows the prominent branching, and on the branches scale like leaves are there, scaly leaves are there, and in the axil of the scale leaves the spore producing structures, trilobed structures are there. These trilobed structures are nothing but the sporangium. Okay, and there are three sporangia in the at the single point, and so that this is the trilobed structure, and that's three sporangia in union is called as the synangium. So in the bract of the in the bract of the scale leaves, the trilobed synangia are there. So entire plant body of the Psilotum, which is the sporophytic plant body made by underground rhizome, aerial shoots, they are typically green, they are branched structure, they are slender, they are tubular, then on the aerial branches small scales are there, and in the axillary position of these scales trilobed synangia are there. This is the entire plant body or whole plant body of the Psilotum. Okay, now see the description. Number 1, the plant body is slender and shrubby. Plant body is slender and look like a shrubby appearance. Number 2, it possesses green, rigid and dichotomously branched stems. The stems are typically green, then dichotomously branched, and they are very rigid or tough in appearance or tough to touch. Then number 3, the stems are perennial and somewhat xerophytic in structure. You see the structure of the stem, at that time you will know that these stems shows the typical xerophytic nature, okay, and they are perennial. Number 4, the stems merge below the surface into slender dichotomous rhizome which branch freely and may be 1 meter or more long. Okay, at the base of the dichotomous branching, at the base in the underground portion, there are the rhizoids. There is the rhizome, okay, and that rhizome is again long and dichotomously branched structure. Number 5, there are no roots, and here roots are absent. All function of the roots is conducted by the underground rhizomes. Number 6, the rhizome generally contains a mycorrhizal fungus, means the rhizome of the Psilotum causes the symbiotic association of the mycorrhiza. When gametophytic plant body of the Psilotum forms at the here gametophytic plant body is nothing but the juvenile stage of the sporophytic plant body, very initial beginning of the sporophytic plant body, and at the time of gametophytic plant body mycorrhizal association is takes place. Okay, number 7, any dichotomy of rhizome may develop into green aerial shoot. Okay, so this is nothing but the type of vegetative reproduction. The part of the rhizome again cause any part of the rhizome or dichotomy causes the aerial branches. Number 8, the rhizome remains covered with hair-like absorbing structures of rhizoids, and these rhizomes are further covered by the hair-like structures like the rhizoids. Number 9, the aerial shoot regularly has several dichotomous branching. You see in the photograph the aerial branches shows always dichotomous branching. Number 10, the basal portion of the shoot is cylindrical. At the base of the stem, that stem is the cylindrical, okay, and at the tip they are slender. Number 11, the aerial shoots bear small scale-like leaves which remain more or less regular in distribution. Those leaves are without veins. So many small bract-like leaves are scale-like leaves are present on the aerial stems, and they do not having the veins. Okay, so they are scale-like structures. Now the anatomy of the sporophytic structure. The first point is the anatomy of the aerial shoot. Okay, aerial shoot means aerial stem. Okay, you see in the diagram there is a when you take the transverse section, the outline of the stem is the circular. Outermost protective covering is the epidermis. Epidermis is further covered by the cuticle, which is the waxy coating on the epidermis. Then epidermis having the stoma. The natural opening stomata are there for gaseous exchange. These stoma are also present. Below the epidermis there is a multi-layered chlorenchyma. Why this region is called as the chlorenchyma? Basically it is a parenchymatous region, and due to presence of chloroplast this region is called as the chlorenchyma. Then what is the function of this chlorenchyma? It causes the photosynthesis. Okay, it involved in the photosynthesis, so that this region typically green, so that the stem color is typically green. Okay, and below the 2 to 3 layered chlorenchymatous region there is a sclerenchyma, and here sclerenchyma is the multi layered region, and this multi-layered region is made by sclerenchyma, so it is sclerenchymatous region. Sclerenchyma is the purely mechanical tissue, and due to presence of this multi-layered region of sclerenchyma, the stem shows typically xerophytic nature, and due to the presence of this sclerenchyma, the stems are very rigid, very tough, very strong to touch. So below the epidermis there is a cortex, and cortex is divided by external chlorenchyma, then middle sclerenchyma, and inner parenchyma. Okay, inner parenchyma is made by the thin walled parenchymatous cells, and this region is involved in the storage of the food material. Okay, what is there are three parts of the cortex: external chlorenchyma involved in the photosynthesis, below the chlorenchyma sclerenchyma is there, which is involved in the give mechanical support, and below the sclerenchyma there is a parenchymatous region which is involved in the storage of the function, storage of the food material, and major portion of the stem is occupied by this parenchymatous cortex region. Okay, and inside the parenchymatous cortex there is a stellar region. Stellar region is always made by the stellar tissue. Stellar tissue means vascular tissue. Now there is a endodermis. Endodermis is nothing but the barrier in between external non-stellar region and inner stellar region, and this endodermis separate outer region from inner region. Okay, so this is the structural barrier in between inner and outer region, endodermis, and that endodermis is the single layered, and inside the endodermis there is a phloem. Phloem is nothing but the food material conducting tissue. So the inside the endodermis there is a phloem. Okay, and that phloem is also multi-layered, and at the inside the phloem there is a xylem tissue, which is the water and mineral conducting tissue, and xylem patches are present at the center, and these xylem patches again shows the shows the or that xylem is the ribbed. Ribbed means ribs are develops from the xylem, so it is the elongated and it shows the somewhat star shaped structure. And metaxylem, large cavity xylem cells, protoxylem, small cavity xylem cells are there. So in this way, this is about the internal organization of the stem of the Psilotum. Now see the description. Point number 1. In TS, the aerial stem shows well-marked cuticular epidermis. Cuticular means which is covered by the cuticle. One cell in thickness. Epidermis is single-celled. The stomata are found on the grooves of the surface. The small grooves are present on the epidermis, and the stomata are present in the grooves. Number 2. The cortex consists of three zones. Just I have discussed these three zones: outer chlorenchymatous, then middle sclerenchymatous, and innermost is the parenchymatous. Chlorenchymatous involved in photosynthesis, then sclerenchymatous involved in mechanical support or rigidity, and parenchymatous involved in the storage of the food material. So we are skip this explanation and directly going toward the number 5. The well-marked endodermis surrounds the stele. Just I have discussed this in the diagram. Number 6. There lies a core of sclerenchymatous cells in the center of the stele. At the center of the stele, there is a sclerenchymatous cells. Okay. Number 7. Central sclerenchymatous core remains surrounded by narrow band of the xylem elements. Just I have said that xylem is the ribbed, and because it causes the narrow bands toward the endodermis or inside the phloem tissue. Number 8. The xylem cylinder that surrounds the sclerotic pith is stellar or star shaped. Okay, at the central region there is a xylem and which is star shaped due to that ribbed or narrow bands of xylem elements. Number 9. The metaxylem tracheids composed of scalariform xylem elements, while the narrow protoxylem element shows spiral thickening. Okay, so these are the elements of the xylem, and in metaxylem tracheids are there. Okay, and the protoxylem, you can separate metaxylem, protoxylem? Larger cavity xylem cells are metaxylem, smaller cavity cells of the xylem, they are the protoxylem. Okay. Number 10. In between the endodermis and xylem, there lies a mass of thin-walled cells that represents the phloem. Okay, phloem is there in between the xylem and the endodermis. Just we have studied this phloem in the diagram. Okay, so next aspect is the reproduction by spores. Here these spores are developed in the spore producing structure called as the sporangium. There are in Psilotum, three sporangia are attached with each other, and the union of these three sporangia is called as the synangium. That synangium singular, synangia plural, and these synangia are develops on the aerial shoots in the axillary position of the bracts. Okay, small bracts are there, scaly leaves are there. You see in the first photographs the synangium is given, and this at the base of the synangia there is a small bract called as the small leaves or scaly leaves. And in second photograph, that is the transverse section of the synangium. In transverse section of the synangium, we can found three sporangia. Okay, three sporangia are isolated. They are covered by their wall, and the three sporangia are covered by the wall of the synangium. Okay, and this synangium contain the spore mother cells. This synangium contain the spore mother cells, and these spore mother cells are basically diploid in nature. Okay, and their nucleus is the diploid, and these spore mother cells goes in the reduction division meiosis, and they causes the spores which are haploid in nature. So in this way, many spores are developed by the single sporangium. In single synangium, there are three sporangia, and many spores are developed by the single synangium. When these synangia are matures, they will rupture from their sutures, from their marked triradiate marked wall, and after breaking of the synangium, spores can be released from the sporangium, and when they settle down on the suitable substratum under favorable conditions, they start germination and they produce new gametophytic plant body of the Psilotum. When spore germinates, the gametophytic generation of the Psilotum is begins or starts. Okay, and that gametophytic plant body is called as the prothallus. Okay, now this is about the description of synangium, their external appearance, their internal appearance, as well as the spore producing structure. Now see the description. Point number 1. In Psilotum, spores are produced in sporangia, born at the distal end of the dichotomously branched aerial shoot. Okay, these sporangia develops on the aerial shoots. Number 2. The sporangium develops on a small appendage subtended by forked bract. Okay, this sporangia develops in the axillary position of the bracts. Number 3, it is trilobed structure. That sporangia are trilobed structure measuring 2 to 3 mm in diameter. The diameter of that sporangium is 2 to 3 mm. Okay. Number 4, each lobe of the sporangium has a spore sac with numerous spores. Each lobe of the synangium having the sporangium, and that sporangium is nothing but the spore sac which produce the numerous spores. Such sporangium formed by a group of 2 or more spore sac is called as the synangium, and the union of these 3 sporangia is called as the synangium. In some cases, the number of sporangia may be 2, but majority 3 sporangia are present in the single synangium. Okay, आणखीन एकदा तुम्हाला सांगतो, स्पोरोफायटिक स्ट्रक्चर हे सायलोटम मधलं, तर हे ट्रायलोबड स्ट्रक्चर आहे. त्याचा ट्रान्सफर सेक्शन जर घेतला तर तुम्हाला 3 स्पोरेंजिया दिसतील. त्या स्पोरेंजियममध्ये काय असतं, तर स्पोरोजिनस टिश्यू आहे. तो कसा आहे, डिप्लॉइड आहे. तो डिप्लॉइड असायचं कारण का, तर स्पोरोफायटिक प्लांट बॉडी डिप्लॉइड आहे. आणि त्यानंतर मग ते डिप्लॉइड स्पोरोजिनस टिश्यू रिडक्शन डिव्हिजन मिओसिसमध्ये जातो, आणि प्रत्येक स्पोरेंजियममध्ये भरपूर स्पोर्स, न्यूमरस स्पोर्स तयार होतात. आणि आणि ज्या वेळेस मग हे स्पोरेंजियम मॅच्युअर होईल ते फुटलं जातं आणि फुटल्यानंतर स्पोर्स बाहेर पडतात आणि स्पोर्स बाहेर पडल्यानंतर सुटेबल एन्व्हायरमेंटल कंडिशनमध्ये जर ते सापडले, त्यांना एन्व्हायरमेंटल कंडिशन अवेलेबल झाल्या, सुटेबल सबस्ट्रॅटमवर जर असले, ते व्यवस्थित जर्मिनेट होतात आणि व्यवस्थित जर्मिनेट झाल्यानंतर त्यांच्यापासून गॅमेटोफायटिक प्लांट बॉडी तयार होते. त्यालाच आपण दुसरं नाव काय म्हणतो, प्रोथॅलस किंवा गॅमेटोफायटिक प्रोथॅलस. मग प्रोथॅलसचं फंक्शन काय असणार आहे, त्याच्यापासून मग गॅमेटोफायटिक प्लांट बॉडी म्हणजे काय, गॅमेटॉन्जिया कॉझिंग प्लांट बॉडी. मग ते मेल गॅमेटॉन्जियम अँथ्रिडियम, फिमेल गॅमेटॉन्जियम आर्चिगोनियम तयार करणार आणि त्याच्यापासून सेक्शुअल रिप्रोडक्शन होणार. ओके, सो इन दिस वे दिस इज अबाउट द स्पोर प्रोड्युसिंग स्ट्रक्चर इन द सायलोटम. We can stop here. In next lecture we will try to discuss on the reproduction and alternation of generation in the Psilotum. Thank you.